Okay, let's talk about bad bosses. I was so debating whether or not I should call this segment Bad Bosses or You're a Really Fantastic, Awesome Boss, but you should listen to this anyway because nobody wants to hear that they're a bad boss. so, but I have to say that one of the more freeing things that I did, I was a CEO for 10 years, was to really have those conversations with myself. Am I really doing a good job? And what can I do to improve? One thing, of course, is to actually talk to your staff about how you are as a boss and being open to that. There are, of course, limitations to that, seeing that they might not tell you the truth. So let me give you a few quick pointers, and then you bring that into your self dialogue and you do a little observing and reflecting of yourself. And who knows, you might actually come to terms with, oof, there are actually some times that I'm not a great boss, also called a bad boss. Why do I want to talk about this? Not to shame anyone. I do want to talk about it because there's more and more data coming out that has to do with this big resignation and whether or not people are leaving because of COVID, or if they're, and the whole reshuffle that has happened because of COVID, or if there's something else. And the stats from pre-COVID are pretty much the same, which is that people leave their jobs because of bad bosses. The vast majority says the reason they leave their job is because of bad bosses. So it's a great business decision from a boss to make the inventory of how good I am as a boss. And if I do any of these bad boss stuff, I do need to educate myself in how to turn that around. Some of these are, of course, in the vicinity of soft skills. But I got to tell you, if we don't have soft skills today, we're going to have a really hard and rude awakening to losing our talent and losing a lot of money. So let's get to it. Here are some telltale signs if you are a bad boss. Are you prepared? Have you, in the last week or so, asked your staff? No, let's do it this way. If you, in the last week or so, haven't said to your staff individually, how can I help? Then you might actually be one of the bad bosses. If you haven't said, how can I help you make your job easier? You might actually have some work to do. If you are not in the habit of asking people who work with you and for you if they need help performing that very job, you have some work to do and you have some shifts that you need to make. Have you, in the last week, asked your staff, what do you need? It's a version of the previous question. Do you have everything you need in order to do your work in a way that's great for you? Have you asked that question? Have you said things in the last week like, I'm just checking in. How are you doing? Have you said good morning? Have you said thank you? How many times in the last week have you said thank you? Just straight up, thank you. How many times in the last week have you said, I appreciate you? I appreciate you. If you don't want to go that soft, you might say, I appreciate what you do. And in a meeting, have you asked your staff, what's your take? What would you do differently? Have I missed something? This is the kind of humility that you need to be and have as a leader. You need to be confident, but you also need to be humble. If you don't have a big scoop of 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 humility, you see, I have to be able to laugh at myself. I can hardly speak sometimes. Funny that I speak for a living. But I have to laugh at myself. We have to be able to do that. So it doesn't go on the hard list of, are you a bad boss? Have you laughed at yourself this week? But, we're getting close. Sometime maybe in the last month, you should have laughed at yourself. These are important questions to ask yourself. because there's a lot of focus on what we need to do as good bosses, but what have you missed? And if you've missed any of these questions, yeah, you have some work to do. And it's not easy to just start saying these things because sometimes it goes against what we feel on the inside, and so we need to do a lot of shuffling and working on the who. Again, why we work so much on the who and the why in mindfulness intelligence is that we can't really become strategic and tactical and precise until we actually are what we are trying to achieve. But here are another couple of telltale signs. If you do indeed say things like, and this is just for you to check yourself, if you have said lately, that's how we've always done it. If you actually feel annoyed that people are questioning you and you have answers that have to do with, that's how we've always done it, or even worse, because I said so. Because I said so. If that's actually words that come out of your mouth as a leader or as a boss, you might be on the bad list, you know? And it's not that you are on the bad list, you behave as a bad boss. Super important distinction. There's no shaming here. It's just a pointing out that there are certain things that we do and certain behaviors that come from unquestioned things within yourself. And it's not until you learn how to shift that around. That's why people are doing so great with tactical and money stuff and whatever it might be that they want in the outside world when they go through the mindfulness intelligence programs, because they shift their fundaments in a way where they have a kind of power and influence and a kind of attractor and receiver within themselves that they didn't have before. And I think the two last things I will mention before wrapping this inconclusive list of bad boss behavior is the really bad sign of you being a bad boss is if you are surrounded by people who only say yes. If you are surrounded by people who never question you, who don't speak up, you kind of get the sense that they think you're an idiot or that they disagree, I should say, then you know you've done a really bad job as a boss. Because the moment you have people around you who don't challenge you, who don't develop and grow the conversation and lead things forward, you know you're going to be in trouble. It might feel good for your ego, but you're going to be in trouble, and your company is going to be in trouble. So the very last thing I would say as an overarching umbrella word for someone who is not on the bad boss list is someone who cares. You actually have to give a damn. Caring is one of the best soft skills you can have as a leader. And then there are so many other things we need to add because you actually have to be good at this, that, and the other. But you're nothing if you don't care. And with that, I hope that this bad boss list has resonated with you, at least to a point where you can bring new dialogue into your space, and that you can reflect on these things. And also, as you coach your bosses, you're probably a boss of a boss as well. And when you coach them, it's good to just make sure that we know that there are some things that we should say often, and there are some things that we should never say. And above all, let's care about each other. And with that, I am wishing you a beautiful rest of your week.